You ready for this? Let me take a drink before we unload. Some people will talk about this trade today, but nobody's going to talk about it like this today. And that's why you're here on the Recher podcast, because we're not just going to give you some BS kind of overview of what happened. We're going to take a deep dive and tell you why this trade between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Edmonton Oilers is more than what meets the eye. It's more than what these two guys can bring on the ice. So the news came down yesterday, and I posted this. I was actually at Saltball last night, a little before 10 o'clock, and the Lightning sent the email out to all of us here in the Tampa Bay media, and I'll read it for you. The Tampa Bay Lightning have acquired forward Sam O'Reilly from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for forward Isaac Howard. Vice President and General Manager Julien BriseBois announced today. O'Reilly skated in 62 regular season games with the London Knights of the Ontario Hockey League last season, recording 28 goals and 71 points with a plus 56 rating. The Toronto, Ontario native proceeded to play in 17 games during the OHL playoffs, logging 7 goals and 22 points with a plus 24 rating to help the Knights win the J. Ross Robertson Cup as OHL champions for a second straight season. His 22 postseason points and plus 24 rating both ranked third among all London skaters. Following the OHL playoffs, O'Reilly played a key role in the Knights winning the organization's third Memorial Cup, skating in 5 games and recording 2 goals and 5 points, including the primary assist on the game-winning goal in the championship game. Over the past 2 seasons, the 6'1", 190-pound forward has appeared in 130 regular season games with London, accruing 48 goals and 127 points with a plus 88 rating and 11 power play tallies. A 2-time OHL champion. He skated in 33 postseason contests over the past 2 seasons, registering 12 goals and 34 points with a plus 26 rating. He was originally drafted by the Oilers in the first round, 32nd overall of the 2024 NHL draft. So, when that happened, I started watching and researching the shit out of Sam O'Reilly. And I'm talking about digging into his past and watching old interviews and reading draft profiles on this kid. And there are people that are going to make the obvious comparison to Anthony Cirelli, and that's fine. But again, every single time the Lightning get a forward that has some defensive capability, like an Ethan Zada, their second-round pick this year, like this kid, Sam O'Reilly, let's not just say that every single guy is Anthony Cirelli, because Tony is a badass, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. They just won the 4 Nations. He's probably going to be on Team Canada for the Olympics. Let's not just say that every single forward that we like defensively is Anthony Cirelli. Let's go a little bit deeper. Go a little bit deeper with this entire thing. And before we get back to Sam O'Reilly, this whole Isaac Howard thing is really, really funky. Going through this process, again, back to the fireside chats last year with Julien BriseBois, he brought up the fact that there was a possibility that Isaac Howard would join the Tampa Bay Lightning at some point for the 2024-2025 season. We know that didn't happen. We know that the Lightning would have preferred that Isaac Howard go to Syracuse in the AHL and to play there. That is not what happened, and that is not what Isaac Howard wanted. Now, first off, do you agree to that? And then you have a fantastic season at Michigan State, and then you change your freaking mind? I don't understand what happened with Isaac Howard. I really don't. I don't understand how you think you are going to come to an organization that does not do what these other teams do. They're not Colorado. They're not going to treat you like Cale Makar. Boom, right into the starting lineup. They're not the Rangers. They did it 10 years ago with Chris Kreider. They did it last year with Gabe Perreault. They're not the Washington Capitals that did it last year with Ryan Leonard. Julien BriseBois and the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is the way they go about their business. Now, Could there have been a possibility that he goes to the AHL for a couple games and then joins the team in the postseason? When Oliver Bjorkstrand was banged up, when Brandon Hagel got knocked out of that series, maybe. I just find it so intriguing that Isaac Howard and his camp thought that they held the cards in this entire situation. They didn't. You're talking about one of the most respected franchises in all of sports, and this is the way you went about your business? He ended up getting what he wanted. He gets traded to Edmonton. He signed a 3-year entry-level contract. So he's done at Michigan State. He's done. He's not going back to the Spartans, which he just said a couple of weeks ago that he was excited to go to Michigan State. That's why I'm telling you right now. You're going to talk about why O'Reilly looks like Anthony Cirelli. People are going to, crap all over Isaac Howard. But I want you to focus on the two things. And regardless, you don't like Isaac Howard, you're going to compare him to Jonathan Drouin. Yes, of course. I think those guys will be linked forever. Forever. Two high drafted kids, two guys that thought that were going to be part of the future, and it did not work out. Drouin looked miserable out there. Isaac Howard never even suited up for the Bolts. But just think about how Isaac Howard went about this situation. It just doesn't make any sense. It ended up working out for the kid. But I would be weary if I were the team that acquired him because of the way he handled the situation with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You thought you were so special that the team was going to treat you differently than everybody else. What kind of precedent does that set? What happens to the next guy that has a decent college year and then he's going to hold the team for ransom? No, that's not going to happen. Teams that have a foundation, teams that have a moral, teams that have values, teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning, that's how you sustain success, not by bending over to every single guy that thinks they have leverage on you. Isaac Howard now is going to be with the Edmonton Oilers next year. Why couldn't he have been with the Lightning? How come we couldn't have gotten to a point where, all right, it didn't work out last year. It didn't work. There was a miscommunication. Why couldn't the Tampa Bay Lightning sign him to an entry-level contract after the season was over? And let's say he doesn't go to prospect development camp like we saw last year. Maybe he goes to training camp with the Lightning. If he doesn't make the team, he goes to the AHL. Maybe he's the first guy that gets called up. Think about this, guys. Nobody's talking about this shit. Nobody. Why couldn't he do that? Why couldn't Isaac Howard say, hey, miscommunication? Not just him, his camp. Miscommunication on our part. I would have really liked to have skipped the AHL, but that's not how you guys do business. Fine. I'll sign my entry-level contract with you guys, and we'll go forward. Training camp, I'll do my best to make the team out of camp. If not, I'll go to the AHL for a couple of games and then go from there. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to humble himself enough to go the route that so many of these other players in the Lightning organization have gone down. If you think you're too good for that, good riddance. We'll pack the door. We'll pack your bags for you. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Deuces, my brother. If you think, once again, that one of the most respected franchises in all of professional sports is going to bend over for you, and that is the way you go about your business, not a good fit. Go to Edmonton, enjoy the winters there, have fun, buddy. Have fun. I don't want any part of it. No, thank you. You don't need that type of player in your locker room. Part of the reason why the Tampa Bay Lightning have been so good is because from the top down, they've been busting their ass. They go about it the right way. They're the hardest workers on this team. I've been very vocal in where I think Nikita Kucherov can make up the gap when it comes to his relationship with the media and things like that. But nobody's outworking that guy. And that's the reason why they put the A on his chest. is because he works his freaking ass off. He leads by example when it comes to the work ethic on the ice, off the ice, getting prepared for the season. Guys like Steven Stamkos did not go to Toronto. He did not go to Detroit when he signed that big contract, 8 years ago or so. He took less money so that you can sign Point, you can sign Kucherov, you can sign Vasi, you can sign Hedman, you can sign all these different guys. How hard does Braden Point work? Braden Point was a guy that couldn't skate. Remember, he couldn't skate. And then a couple of years ago in the freaking fastest skater competition, he's up there going toe-to-toe with Matthew Barzal and Connor McDavid. Think about that. Guys that work hard. You're not seeing Jake Gensel not work hard. Cirelli, Hagel, really? Nick Paul? Even the guys in the lower third, the bottom six last year. Glendening, Gergensons, those guys don't work hard. Yanni Gourde, think about that. Isaac Howard did not fit here. And if I'm an Edmonton fan, I'm super excited about the skill and what he can do as far as lengthening their lineup. Maybe when you get Zach Hyman back, now you can have two good lines. You got to have McDavid on a line with Hyman and Nugent Hopkins, and you have Draisaitl with Isaac Howard. Yeah, I can understand why you think that would work. But the way that this kid in his camp went about his business doesn't jive. Doesn't jive what we've come to love here about this Tampa Bay Lightning organization. So again, good riddance to you. I'm not just one of those people that's just going to be on the surface area. Oh, you suck. You're a bench. Blah, blah. I'm not going to call you names. He's a kid at the end of the day. I do not like, it's not personal. I did not like his business decisions. But how he went about his business during this entire process shows that he is not a good fit for the Lightning. Fine. I even said this back when I was coaching. I will take a less talented player if he's a better teammate, if he has a better family environment, if he's more willing to do more things on the baseball field. I only play one position. I don't want a kid like that. I don't care how hard you throw. Coach, I'll play wherever you put me. Whatever you need. Those are the kind of guys you win with. This is a long-term play for the Tampa Bay Lightning. When you look at the acquisition of Sam O'Reilly and you're looking at the trade out for Isaac Howard. Edmonton's looking, how can this guy help me right now? Lightning are looking at Sam O'Reilly, Ethan Zada, Ethan Gauthier. 2 or 3 years from now, those guys are going to be busting their way into this Tampa Bay Lightning lineup. What do I like about Sam O'Reilly? So, again, I watched probably 3 or 4 long videos of his play. I've also watched interviews and draft profiles. Everybody's like, oh, he's just like Anthony Cirelli. All the draft profiles I was looking at last night, it was all like he's a Sam Reinhart type player. He's a Matthew Tkachuk type player. He's a who's the other guy? Bo Horvat, Nazem Kadri. Nobody said Anthony Cirelli. The only reason why people are saying Anthony Cirelli is because of some of the success he had in the OHL, and also, he got traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning. For those wondering, the difference between they're like, oh, he won the OHL and then he went to the Memorial Cup. So the OHL is one of the leagues in Canada. If you win that league, one of the 3, you get an opportunity to play in the Memorial Cup. If you do that, then it's a round robin with 3 other teams, and then there's a semifinal and a final. So they not only won the Ontario Hockey League, but then when they went to the Memorial Cup, they even lost to Medicine Hat, and they ended up playing them in the finals a little bit later and won. And this kid is a postseason player. So if that's the comparison that you want to make with Anthony Cirelli, fine. But there's a couple of things that are a lot different to me. First off, he's a right-handed shot. That's, to me, I can't, it's tough for me to look at players when one's a righty and one's a lefty and then compare them to the two. It's a different game. It is, especially with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Look at what happened last year. They had big-time issues with a right-handed shot being able to win faceoffs. That's why at the end of the games, when they pull the goalie, they put Luke Glendening, their 4th-line center, out there to win a draw. That's not ideal. That's not ideal. other teams can go out there with multiple guys. Braden Point does not do a great job of winning faceoffs. That's part of the reason why I looked at Steven Stamkos and how much better he's gotten over the years at winning faceoff draws. Like, nobody's mentioning this when Stamkos, everybody's like 5-on-5, 5-on-5. Like, there's more. It's more than that. It's more than what he can do on the power play. It's more about the leader. Like, the dude's getting better at winning draws, and he's going to be out there anyway. Last year, you didn't have a right-hander to win a draw, and you had your fourth-line center out there, and you would try to get him off the ice. Think about that. Lightning trying to win games late in the third period last year, and Luke Glendening was on the ice. So a right-handed shot, different than a left-hand shot, okay? He's also, Cirelli's a guy to me that, like, he bends over a little bit, and he's a guy that does a really good job of being on his edges. That's not what I see from Sam O'Reilly. That's something that he has to work on, and he says that himself. So when I look at those two guys, I don't, he's a 200-foot player, which is great. He takes pride in the defensive zone. That's great. And he's had some success at the minor level, and I get that. But that is where the comparisons end for me when it comes to him and Anthony Cirelli. Just watch the tape. People that are saying that, like, go watch some film on the kid. They don't look alike. And I like that Sam goes into the dirty areas. I like that he's a right-handed shot because this team needs that. Here's some of the other more important things. And again, as much as we talk about on the ice stuff, the off the ice stuff, and the way that this kid carries himself is way more of a Lightning player than Isaac Howard will ever be. When he got drafted by Edmonton, now mind you, Edmonton is a team that has been really good the last couple of years, but they haven't gotten over the hump. And they know they need to strike while the iron's hot for a guy like Connor McDavid. And even though they draft this kid and they know he's a couple of years away, you're thinking Connor's going to be here for the next 10, 12 years. This kid can come in there and be that second or third line center behind Connor McDavid, right? You're the Edmonton Oilers. You traded conditional pick last year in the draft to go back in to the 32nd pick. You make this trade with the Philadelphia Flyers and you draft this kid. So the fact that a team that's contending right now for championships traded back in to the first round, right? First round or whatever the 32nd pick was, right? I always get jacked up when it comes to 30. Yes, 30. I always get jacked up when it's 30 and 32 teams. That's the one number for all the sports. I get it boggles my mind sometimes. That's why a team like the Edmonton Oilers would trade back into the first round, number 32 overall with the Philadelphia Flyers, to go get that kid, because that's how highly they thought of him. And then when this kid gets interviewed, what does he say? He says, I was so happy when I got drafted, but it was so great to see my mom and my sisters because they had a lot to do with me getting selected. Family guy. Love that. Also, another question he was asked was, hey, what should people know about you off the ice? Not the player, off the ice. And he says that I'm a happy guy and I'm a good guy. Like, when somebody says that they're a good guy or they want to be perceived as a good guy, some people could look at that and go like, like he's maybe full of himself. I don't look at it like that. I look at it, that matters to him. Like, it matters to him what people's perception of him is. And when you have that heightened sensibility of making sure that you're doing right by people because you want to be known as a good guy, that to me shows somebody that's grounded, somebody that's got a good background, got a good history with their family. I love those type of answers. I think you learn more about guys, professional athletes, when they give those type of answers rather than they talk about themselves as a player. Here's another thing that makes him different than Anthony Cirelli. This is a kid that grew up playing on defense. He was a defenseman. Then he moved to right wing, and then they moved in the center his first year in London. And I don't even know if we've reached the tip of the iceberg or even anywhere close to the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the offense for this kid. He grew up playing defense. So on one side of it, you look at it as this guy, and he said it. I love what he said. He's like, I'm not going to be one of those cherry picking guys. I know how important it is to take care of your own zone. That's music to your ears as a Lightning hockey fan. But also it shows like, bro, when you go out there and now you're in the offensive end, you can grow even more. The kid's a really, really good passer. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a sniper. I think he's going to be more like a playmaker. But if you're a center, there's nothing wrong with that. Not at all. There is a maturity to his game. He mentioned, again, I said this before. I'll get to that in a second because I want to finish with that. All right. Some of the other things about this kid to really, really like. He said, I'm an old school player. I focus on the little things. Oh, does that sound familiar? I'm an old school player. I focus on the little things. And that is why my game translates to the playoffs. That's why I play some of my best hockey in the postseason. And you heard him say in the 2023 season there in London, he started getting more and more ice time as the year went on because he earned the trust of his coaching staff. Trust, leadership, communication, defensive responsibility. I mean, could the Lightning have acquired a better person, a better prospect than this kid? A right-handed middle six center that is only going to get better? I would be absolutely shocked if this kid doesn't take a tremendous leap forward in the next year or two. He's going to probably go back to, you're not going to see him for 2 years. That's just the way it goes. You're not going to see him for 2 years. But when you do, I really think this is a guy that's going to be here, and he's going to be here to stay. You look at this deal, and people are going to say, oh, this team got fleeced. I think both teams win in this deal. I think if you're Edmonton, you look at being the bridesmaid the last 2 years. What can we do to inject some youthful energy into this team? How can we lengthen out our offense? Isaac Howard is a really, really good addition to your team if that is what you're looking for. We'll see how it works out. If you're the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're building for 2 to 3 years down the road. You're building for that next crop of guys to come in. Now, do I think that they need to get better now and next year? Yes, I do. And that's why I've been very vocal in my concerns of not doing enough to get this team ready to be battling it out with Edmonton, with the Florida Panthers. But I look down the line and look at what they have coming in about 2-3 years. Watch out for the Bolts. That next wave of young players should make a huge difference with this franchise. Now, what does he need to work on? What are the things that he needs to work on? And this is kind of the last thing, and this is the thing right here where I have optimism when it comes to him and his role with the Tampa Bay Lightning. A lot of people, himself included, said he needs to work on his skating and his speed and making quick cuts and getting on his edges. Well, interesting enough, the Tampa Bay Lightning have Barb Underhill, the skating coach that has done wonders for Braden Point, for Carter Verhaeghe, for a lot of these other young players within the organization where, maybe they're not the greatest skater. Can you imagine scouting a guy like Braden Point all those years ago and then going back to your team and saying that he's not a good skater? If you're a scout, you must look back at your draft, your pre-draft analysis and workup of Braden Point and go, I was either totally wrong or the Tampa Bay Lightning have a magician as their skating coach. Well, we know the latter is true. Maybe the former is as well. If you give me a guy that has a mental makeup of the Sam O'Reilly, I will take a guy like that within the Lightning organization 7 days a week and twice on Sunday over a guy like Isaac Howard, who may have all the talent in the world. He'll have a Hobie Baker trophy in his man cave for the rest of his life, but a guy that went about his business in such a poor way that it painted him in such a negative light. here in the Tampa Bay area that he will forever be booed when he steps inside of Amalie Arena. Never going to stop. It's going to be like that for his entire career. And how is it going to work out for him? He may have flashes of brilliance like we've seen with Jonathan Drouin. Jonathan Drouin also benefited big time from being close friends with Nathan McKinnon. That's why he got a lot of love there in Colorado. He got those opportunities. He got opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Is Isaac Howard going to be afforded those same opportunities? We don't know. But just keep an eye on the career of Isaac Howard short term and Sam O'Reilly long term. I think it's going to be a very interesting story that plays out. So that's kind of my entire thought process of the trade. 26 minutes, bing, bang, boom. A lot of people wanted to know last night on Twitter, and I was like, man, I can't just type this out. We got to talk about it. But when people go out there and they say Sam O'Reilly, just like Anthony Cirelli, just point them back to our discussion that we just had and just say that it goes way deeper than that. Julien Brisebois said this for many, many years. It's not always about the players that they bring in. It's about the people. I speak about that with Nick Paul a lot. It seems our conversations always circle back to that. The people. I've said it before here on the program, and I'll say it again. When Nick Paul got traded here, he was sitting at a bus stop in Ottawa, and he was like blown away with the wives and the girlfriends, with Sandra Stamkos and all the women and girlfriends with the Bolts, and how they already reached out to his girlfriend before he even spoke to us. That means something. But that doesn't happen by accident. You know how it happens? When you have good leaders in place and you have good people up and down your organization. That's why I think it's a great deal for the Tampa Bay Lightning. What do I feel? Is it a great deal for the Oilers? Yeah, again, fine. Do what you got to do. That's what you think is the right pick. I think it's a risk worth taking if you're Edmonton. Some people are going to say, oh, the Lightning could have got more. Nah, I don't think you could have. You get a guy like Sam O'Reilly who's a first-round pick, who's got a lot of great traits, and you're not getting a compensatory second-round pick. You also don't have a ton of leverage if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning because you're trying to move the player. So you lose some of that leverage when it comes to negotiating. And that's what we heard. We heard that right around the draft, right? That there was a lot of teams out there that wanted Isaac Howard, and either the compensation wasn't good enough for the Lightning or Isaac Howard wasn't going to sign off for it. You had to find the right partner. And we mentioned this when I came up with my trade package for Connor McDavid, which people are still commenting, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It's an overpay. It's not enough. The Lightning will never do this. Edmonton will never do this. Listen, numbnuts, pay attention to what's going on. That was a possibility. If a trade were to take place, this is what it would entail. It's crazy how people don't listen. It's crazy that people don't read. It's mind-boggling to me. But this had to get done. This is a deal that had to get done for the Tampa Bay Lightning because the longer it dragged on, the worse it was going to be. And you want to put this behind you and you want to move on. This Isaac Howard situation it's been a black cloud on the Tampa Bay, over the Tampa Bay Lightning for the last couple of months. And now it is over. It is over. Goodbye. Again, good riddance to you. You are not a fit for the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. Not the way you go about your business. That is not the way we operate here. Bye-bye.